trying to ID these pieces seems almost impossible.
You're right. It looks like a scrap heap.
1 week after a modified P-51 Mustang crashes at the Reno Air Races, NTSB investigators still don't understand what caused the disaster.
The airplane was absolutely fragmented,
Engine assembly.
so there weren't any big chunks to look at.
So far, the investigators' biggest clue is an 8-inch piece of trim tab that's separated from the aircraft's tail section. But they have no idea how or why it broke off.
You know, this plane flew in World War II. It's almost 70 years old, and it was highly modified for speed. Maybe it was too modified.
Investigators wonder if years of modifications to the Galloping Ghost turned a sturdy fighter into an unstable racing machine. They need to learn all they can about how it was altered.
We had to learn quite a bit about the P-51, and all the information we had was on the stock airplane. It turned out that this airplane was so highly modified that it wasn't even close to being a stock airplane.
All of these World War II fighters are going to have to be modified to make them fast enough. And of course, he had such extensive modifications to the airplane.
Hoot Gibson tells investigators he thinks the Ghost was the most modified P-51 to ever race in the unlimited class.
It had the most radically clipped wings of any P-51 Mustang ever.
Gibson helps the NTSB investigators compare the P-51's original blueprints to the rebuilt Galloping Ghost.
In the war, the P-51 needed all this wing for long-range missions. But a race is only 50 miles. Jimmy needed speed, not range.
The original P-51 was designed to fly long range, carry extra fuel tanks underneath the wings, and fly at, I think, something like 12,000 pounds gross weight. Well, we don't need that for air racing, so we don't need that much wing.
They discovered that in the 60s, the Galloping Ghost had its wings shortened by 8 feet and its tail by 1 foot, a change that made the plane lighter and more streamlined.
The less wing that you're dragging through the air at high speed, the less drag you're going to have, therefore the faster you're going to go.
In 1983, Jimmy Leeward bought the plane, painted it yellow in 1985, and raced it on and off for years at Reno. In 2007, he began making his own modifications to the Galloping Ghost.
I see he overhauled his engine.
Took his top speed from 300 to 500 miles an hour, maybe more. Wow.
But there's one big problem.
You find anything on the flight tests?
Nothing. Zip.
There are no records of Leeward ever flight testing the modifications. Investigators can't be sure if the changes he made were safe.
It was incredibly frustrating that there was no information. The fact that there was no testing of any of the modifications was alarming to us.
What went wrong in the skies over Nevada is still unclear. Until investigators discover a new lead.
There, right there, you see it?
I do. Happens all the time.
Video evidence shows the plane rolling suddenly further left before pitching upwards. Investigators wonder if Leeward flew into wake turbulence that battered his plane. Wake turbulence is an atmospheric disturbance that forms behind an aircraft in flight. Vortices spiraling off the wingtips can create dangerous tornado-like winds.
It is so frequent and so common that you're going to hit the wake of an airplane out in front of you as you're going around the race course. And it always seems to roll you steeper, roll you beyond 90 degrees of bank angle.
Turbulence could explain the left roll.
The left roll upset was consistent with a wake encounter. Did the wake cause the left trim tab event? That's another question.
Investigators wonder if Leeward got too close to the plane flying just ahead of the Galloping Ghost, a plane called Voodoo. But they discover that the telemetry data from Voodoo is faulty. Investigators can't be sure of its exact position throughout the race. They will never know if wake turbulence from Voodoo caused the increased left roll.
I can't believe it.
We could not show that the Galloping Ghost had hit that wake.
It's another disappointment.
Look at the safety report.
Notes from a pre-race safety inspection of the Galloping Ghost provide investigators with a new lead.
A problem with the trim tab fastening screws?
We drilled down into exactly what that meant and talked to the inspector and the crew. We were able to determine that the right elevator trim tab screws were installed incorrectly, and that problem was rectified before the airplane was ever out on the race course.
So they say they replaced the screws on the right tab, but they never touched the left one.
When investigators re-interview Jimmy Leeward's crew, they learn that the mechanics refitted the screws on the right trim tab as ordered. But there's no record of any pre-race repair to the left trim tab, the one that tore off.
They told us they had to retighten the trim tab screws on several occasions. So the airplane was talking to the crew. They never investigated the reason for the screws coming loose.
The question now, did the left trim tab have a defect that no one spotted? Cruikshank still can't answer that question.
Can you find me those photos of the tab separating?
The piece that broke away is only part of the trim tab. The hinge that fastened the tab to the plane's tail has never been found. Without that hinge, they may never know the full story behind the crash of the Galloping Ghost. Three months after the accident, investigators still don't know why a modified P-51 Air Racer went out of control and crashed, killing 11 people.
So where do you want to start?
Anything that looks like a tailpiece.
But now that they better understand the aircraft, investigators search the debris with renewed purpose.
Wreckage, be it large pieces or small pieces, is always going to tell a story. So you have to methodically go through it and look for those signatures.
In December of 2011, investigators finally get a break. They identify a mangled piece of metal in the debris.
It looks like a piece of the trim tab assembly. Howard, take a look at this.
Wow.
It's the critical piece they've been searching for, the hinge from the left tail trim tab, the part that the tab broke away from.
The discovery became very important as the investigation progressed.
Half the screw is snapped off, and what's left is loose.
Examining the trim tab assembly, they discover that a screw that once fastened the tab to the hinge is loose, something that should never happen.
It turns real easy.
The screw is supposed to be secured tightly by a lock nut fixed to the underside of the hinge assembly. The lock nut is specially designed to grip the threads of the screw so it can't come loose due to vibration. Why didn't the lock nut hold the screw in place? Investigators send the trim tab assembly to an NTSB lab in Washington, D.C. Paint analysis of the lock nut leads to an eye-opening discovery.
The lock nuts on this particular airplane had some yellow paint on them. The airplane was last painted yellow in 1985.
It means the critical part is at least 26 years old.
When you go to the FAA guidance, it states that you should not reuse lock nuts like this.
The deteriorated nut should have been replaced years ago. That's not all they find. Microscopic analysis of the screw reveals fatigue cracks, evidence that years of vibrating inside the loose lock nut weakened the screw to the point of failure.
NTSB, Clint Crookshanks.
When investigators get the lab results,
So vibration finally broke the screw.
they believe they've found their smoking gun.
We knew that it had been loose in order for it to cause the necessary forces to fatigue the screw over time.
Aging parts, a loosely fastened trim tab, and extreme aerodynamic forces, it's a fatal combination.
We spent a lot of time to get this one right.
11 months after the crash of the Galloping Ghost at the Reno Air Races,
Let's go, Ghost!
the NTSB announces the probable cause of the accident.
We drilled down into every possible area we could to figure out what happened with this airplane.
Traveling at 512 miles per hour, 200 feet above the Nevada desert, a loose 26-year-old lock nut causes a metal-fatigued screw in the P-51's left trim tab to snap, sending the plane into a violent upward pitch. Extreme G-forces instantly incapacitate pilot Jimmy Leeward,
Oh no.
preventing him from taking any evasive actions.
Jimmy, what's going on?
The whole accident sequence happened very rapidly. I'm sure Jimmy never saw himself hit the ground.
Jesus. No, no, no!
In its final report, the NTSB finds that fast and loose interpretation of the race rules also played a role in the crash.
It did not make sense to do all these major modifications and not do flight testing on it. And the time to do that is when you're out over the desert by yourself, not when you're around a crowd of 100,000 people.
As for the crash survivors, Ron and Tracy Morecambe, they've never returned to the Reno Air Races. And Ron still has nightmares.
There was a light that was coming out of a dark sky. And if I didn't get out of the way, this light was going to kill me.
He's coming right at us!
That light's the light off the spinner of the airplane.
For Clint Crookshanks, this investigation was unique.
This investigation was fascinating from start to finish. We got to look into this old warbird and really see how robust the design was. We also got to see how folks were pushing these airplanes, folks that were doing it correctly and doing the correct modifications and testing. This, unfortunately, was not one of those cases.
As a result of their investigation, the NTSB issues safety recommendations requiring engineering evaluations for aircraft with major modifications and improving safety for spectators and personnel near the racecourse.
We have a much safer Reno Air Races because of the recommendations that we made as a result of this accident.
And for the unlimited pilots, life in the fast lane goes on. Hoot Gibson won the 2015 Unlimited Championship in another modified P-51.
Air racing is really exciting. People come from literally the entire world. I'd say the future of the Reno Air Races looks promising.